Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Book and Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stunning Steve Barber. And joining me is my always awesome co-host, the intellectual rock star himself. And he is now recovered from his ear infection from a few days ago, which was a mother because he couldn't hear out of one ear.
Yeah.
Delicious Dwaylon Davis.
Hey, everybody.
Yep. So, like I said, you can't, it's kind of hard to participate in a podcast when you're only hearing half the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when an ear infection is so bad it leaves you deaf in one ear, that's
Yeah.
not a time to be doing anything else except for laying there feeling sorry for himself.
Yeah. Heating pad on the side of my head.
Yeah. So you feeling a lot better, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
the swelling has gone down. Like my ear was like almost swelled shut,
Ooh.
and the swelling's actually gone down. My ear still feels like really full, but I can hear a little better out of it now.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yes, folks, these things kind of happen, when we start to get old, because Dwayne and I are both half a century old now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, and yesterday, somebody had a birthday besides my son. My son turned 13 yesterday. But I didn't know this until I saw somebody wish him a happy birthday. Abyss.
Oh, cool.
He turned,
Yes, I did see that.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. He turned
I
50
saw that on
yesterday.
Facebook. Yeah.
So if I would have known that, whenever my son and I actually met Abyss, was it last year or the year before,
Mm-hmm.
or the Hall of Fame is 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if we'd actually known that, I would have said, hey, you both share a birthday. But
Right.
I sent the picture to my family. I was like, hey, two of the people in this picture actually share a birthday today. So, so happy birthday to Abyss. And he's one of the people that have signed that belt back there.
Awesome.
And I added a fourth signature. I mentioned that this past Monday. I actually did the show solo. It's not the same. I will tell you that because when I'm there talking, I'm like expecting,
Yeah.
something and cricket. I'm like, oh, so it's a little different because you can't be like me asking questions, or you can't say something is going to,
Yeah.
drive a conversation because it's just one person, so now, I mean, if I had multiple personalities, it might work out,
Hey, might have worked out. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I have never been officially diagnosed with that. So, but either way, welcome back. We're always
Thank you.
glad to have Dwayne back. And this is the first time he's been on the show. Now, this would be 3 weeks actually,
I think so. Yeah.
because my wife had her foot surgery. She's
Mhm.
recovering. Probably slower than what we would like, but the doctor actually he took the stitches out of her foot the other day,
Oh, that's
and
good.
so she can start putting a little weight on it at a time. Um, for those of you who haven't been keeping up with this, she had not just plantar fasciitis on one side of her foot, she also had a torn tendon on the other side, and
Mm.
so the plantar fasciitis, of course, the doc was telling us when he took the stitches out, he said normally when he takes stitches out for the plantar when he does the surgery for the plantar fasciitis, yeah, that he said he normally he tries to have people work in the range of motion,
Hmm.
try to step on it that day. He said, but with her having the other issue, she couldn't.
Right.
So now she's got scar tissue built up with the other,
Mm.
and so now she's having to work it. And I had to rub her foot last night, because that's what good husbands do. We
Hmm.
we rub our wife's feet, especially when they've had surgery on them.
Yeah.
And she said she could actually feel, and it was making it feel a lot better, but she could feel where those scars were,
Oh, wow.
like the scar tissue. But I mean, she went back to work yesterday, only working half days right now because it's just wearing her out because after,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
you know, it's amazing how just sitting in one spot or laying in one spot, with the exception of getting up to go to the bathroom, you
Hmm. Can
know,
wear. Yeah.
it can wear you out,
Yeah.
plus, I mean, she's been in pain and having to take, of course, painkillers that they prescribed and like ibuprofen and,
Hmm.
other things. And she's kind of laid off the Oxycontin or whatever, that one, because I mean, she doesn't like how it makes her feel. It makes her feel all
Yeah.
sluggish and, but thankfully, here soon, she'll be. Well, it's going to take about a year for her to be totally back to normal work.
Right, right.
But here and she won't be still won't be able to drive for at least a month.
Oh wow.
So I'm driving her back and forth to work, which is kind of convenient because obviously I still don't have a job.
Right.
So I mean, it's amazing how things like that kind of worked out. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I was meant to not be working right now,
Yeah.
So, but for everybody who keeps asking, you found a job yet? Don't worry, I will let you know. I love that. You found a job yet? No. Have I told you I found a job yet?
Yeah, have I told you about it? I mean,
you know,
I'm pretty
um,
sure I would have mentioned it if I had found one.
yep. And but now that we can finally discuss, the wrestling news and I discussed on Monday everything. And see, this is what kind of sucked about Dwaylon not being there was because I had a whole lot of people I met,
Yeah.
and including EC3, who signed that belt. And actually, I don't know if I sent you the first picture that was actually taken of us. And
Where he had the belt upside down?
yeah, did I send that to you?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
He was laughing about it too. He just kind of gave the look like, when he lifted up, right side up, and
Yeah.
now I mean he did like that belt. His belt, the official belt, the Canadian flag is actually the current Canadian flag.
Oh, okay.
Whereas mine is the flag that was the Canadian flag when the belt was created.
Right.
But he thought that was pretty cool. Now his belt was also looked a lot newer. It was a lot shinier. I'm like,
Yeah.
this one's been through some stuff. Like last Halloween when I was walking around, with it getting rained on because it just happened to, a
Yeah.
little bit of moisture in the air that night. And, so I really have to watch it. And I'm like, oh, it's going to tear up the leather. I was like, oh, so I was making sure the signatures at the time, it was still only Tommy Rich and Dan Severn.
Yeah.
Or had I gotten Dan Severn's? No, I had not gotten Dan Severn's signature yet. So
Oh,
it was still just
just
Tommy,
Wildfire Tommy Rich.
just Wildfire Tommy Rich. Um, so in the past 6 months or so, I've added 3 different signatures to that.
Yep.
So but that's kind of cool. Watching Crew go against EC3 for the NWA World Title was good stuff. And Crew, I mean, he was just so stoked about that. He was even telling me, and his
I
mom was,
bet.
his mom was there too, and he
Yeah.
was talking about how he had. In fact, she actually took the picture of me and Crew.
hmm
But he was telling her what a big deal it was, and she remembered like Dusty Rhodes, but she didn't remember all the other names,
Oh,
that
okay.
he mentioned. So, but anywho, um, yeah, so it was kind of fun meeting all the people. My son didn't go with me; he was staying at home. That's the longest I've left my wife here at the house since she had the surgery. But she was not alone. He was actually
Right.
here if she needed, any food, anything like that. Um, but some of the people who were up there at that particular fan fest, Tommy Rich was up there again. I didn't meet him this time, but it was him and Austin Idol beside each other.
Oh
And
wow.
they were like, I'm like, well, that makes sense. I mean, they were,
Yeah.
associated with each other for a very long time. Wildcat Chris Harris was there along with Big Mama. Um, I felt bad. I was like, I didn't get a picture taken with either one of them,
hmm
but it seemed kind of weird because I'm like, okay, so I'm, paying for other pictures with a lot of the other ones, which I don't know if can you see that right there?
hmm Yep.
Yeah, that's the Funkos with Ted DiBiase and Mike Rotunda.
hmm
And they autographed him. I mean, they were selling it and he autographed it. And Mike Rotunda misspelled Leighton's name, but not the first time
Right.
that's happened. But yeah, I mean, it was just a really good time, which means that you need to get your butt up here,
Yeah.
and
I do.
you really do. I mean, because or they've got to have some kind of fan fest close to you, like maybe Nashville or
Maybe. I'll have to look. Maybe Louisville.
okay, yeah. Well, Louisville. You know what? If they have one in Louisville, I'll meet you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Louisville is about what 3 hours for you, maybe 4.
Yeah, but probably about 4.
Okay. It's about 2 hours for me, roughly. So, yeah, we do that. We'll definitely meet there. I know they have them in Lexington. I don't know how far
Hmm.
Lexington is for you, but it's also about 2 hours for me, just in a
Yeah.
different direction, slightly.
I think probably another hour or so.
Okay. Yeah, because there's not really it's wild. Kentucky, there's not like straight shots anywhere.
No. Hmm.
You're going to be hopping off at least one interstate going to another one,
Yep.
at some point. Um, but I did tell Mike Rotunda, and I did it kind of a lower voice. I mean, because I
Hmm.
didn't want to. I did give him our condolences.
Yeah.
So and he did say thank you. Um, and then I also saw Mike Rotunda. Apparently, he likes his dip, and because I saw him, he kept spitting. I was like, oh,
Okay.
he's got a little something in there. Uh, we went to high school in Kentucky. We know what it looks like.
Yeah. Yep.
So, um, and then the other one who actually had it sitting on the table beside him was Ming.
Oh, really?
Yep. Even though both of them, it was inside the building where it said no tobacco use anywhere. Mike Rotunda, I mean, he was just kind of spitting every once in a while. You know what he was doing. I don't think anybody's going to tell Ming, hey man, you can't do that.
Nah. Nah. I mean, I wouldn't. But like, all right, you
Yeah, I mean,
can't say anything.
he make go grab the sign and eat it.
Yeah.
Just but he was actually, pretty nice guy. I talked to the Barbarian a little bit longer than Ming,
Hmm.
just because Ming, he was signing some stuff for the person who was before me. And so when I was talking to Barbarian, I mentioned to him that I saw him. The first time I saw him was when he did a run in and attacked the assassin when the assassin had turned face for a bit.
Hmm.
And, so now he's against Paul Jones. Well, the Barbarian joined Paul Jones's army and he ran in, and it was an enhancement match. But I mean, he attacked the assassin, and they did the like three flying headbutts. And David Craig was like, "Who
Hmm.
is that guy?" And and I'm like, "Well, it looks like Road Warrior Animal, but smaller.
Hmm.
Jacked, but
Yeah.
smaller." And
Yeah.
but he was me. He's like, brother, I was so nervous before that, and because just super nice guy.
Mm.
Um, and then Ming, saw the shirt. Of course, man, I have to rep, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
and he was like, he's like, oh, what is this? Armchair booking. I was like, oh, it's my podcast. Like, oh, everybody's got a podcast nowadays. And um, now they did say neither one of them do podcasts.
Right.
Which was fine. Neither one of the Garvins both said they don't do podcasts. They just don't. I mean, not everybody,
Not
is
everybody does. Yeah.
yeah, and which is perfectly fine. Demolition don't do them because their lawyer told them their lawyer advised them not to.
Hmm.
They didn't go into the details except for to say tired of people saying they said things when they didn't, but he didn't. That was Bill Eady. He didn't go into details.
Gotcha. Probably stuff probably got, of course, we know how the media gets and stuff gets taken out of context and
Yeah, I mean, and it could have been the fancy editing where they ask one question,
yep.
but they don't show that answer. They
But
ask a
yeah, they
different
use the answer
question.
from a different one. Yeah.
Yep. In Mick Foley's second book, he actually talked about that.
Hmm.
And because 2020, I think it was 2020. That's only, that's the first one that pops in my mind. But
Yeah.
they did a series or a special time talk about like violence in wrestling because it was like when backyard wrestling and that was really starting to boom.
Yeah.
And of course, Mick Foley being, the
Hmm.
king of hardcore wrestling, he comes on the show and he's wearing like a Santa Claus like sweater, you
Yeah.
know, and he said that they showed him a clip of like some kids doing kid stuff. And he's like, oh,
Hmm.
that looks like kids, just out having fun. And then they showed a video and it was people doing like backyard wrestling. I mean, cutting each
Hmm.
other and everything else. And he said something again. He said, no, he said, I don't endorse that, whatever. Well, when they actually showed the interview, when they actually broadcast it, finally, they showed just the video of the kids cutting each other up. And
Hmm.
then they showed him saying, oh, that just looks like kids having fun.
Oh, that's foul.
And
Yeah.
he brought it up to Linda McMahon and he said, how can they get away with that? And she said, Mick, unfortunately, that is considered an acceptable form of journalism.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, and he was pretty heated. I don't blame him. I mean, I know Linda McMahon, she's also pretty heated.
Yeah.
Which I think her birthday was also yesterday, by the way.
Yep. I think she turned 75.
Wow. And I don't know what the marital status is of her and Vince. We heard that they had been separated.
Last report that I saw, they're still legally married, but living separately.
But she gets half. She deserves
Oh yeah.
half. She helped build him build. I
She
mean,
helped him build it. She's put up with all his crap over the years. So,
and they were high school sweethearts. So, um, yeah. So yeah, just like Eddie Murphy said, if you build it up together, you deserve half.
Yep.
And she helped. She deserves half.
Yeah.
So she may be half a billionaire, but that's still a lot more than what I have. Right now I'm barely even a thousandaire. So, I'm like, see that? Yeah, see that comma? There's a comma.
Yeah, there's a comma there.
Just one number in front of it, but there's a comma.
Yeah.
but um, but before we get started, I do want to tell our good friend Justin from the TNC Sports Talk. I want to tell him congratulations.
Congratulations. Yep.
His fiance had a little boy 2 days ago, and they just went in Monday for normal appointment, and the doctor was like, "We're going to induce you now." About 16 days early. So 16 days, not a not a big deal. So
no.
Kind of like when 13 years ago when my wife, she had an appointment in the morning, and the doctor called her and said, your appointment's not until like noon, but I want you to go ahead and come in now and bring an overnight bag. So call me at work, and I hear across the loudspeaker, "Sorry, Barbara, is a phone call on the ops floor." Went up there, and she's like, Dr. Snow wants me to come in order to bring an overnight bag. I'm like, all right, y'all, it's time. See y'all in a couple weeks.
Go. Yep.
I gotta go. So
I'm on the way.
I'm away. So yeah, they had to induce my wife because she had severe preeclampsia.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but he didn't tell her that on the phone. He didn't tell her that until after, because preeclampsia, of course, is aggravated by stress.
Yep.
So, but that's what he went ahead and, Leighton was a little early, not that much. But yeah, congratulations to Justin. So we know he's not going to be sleeping for the next couple, months. It's going to be a little bit.
Yeah.
Just like here in about 8 months.
Yep. Hope is 11 weeks and.
Oh, okay. I didn't know she was that far along.
11 weeks and 4 days. Yep.
Okay. So you got 29, 28 and a half more weeks to go.
So
about 7 months ish.
Yep. The estimated due date is April 21st.
All right. So everybody keep on the lookout for Dwaylon Baby Watch.
Yeah. we did genetic testing yesterday. So we should get the results from that within a week, and we'll know the baby's gender by then.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I still vote that if it's a boy, I'm kind of partial to the name Steve. But you may have another name that takes priority, which I understand that because we had the same thing with our kids. So but anyway, once again, Justin, congratulations, and obviously Dwaylon, congratulations. Thank you. I'm going to be a dad again. I can no longer have kids. My wife can no longer have kids.
Right.
We had surgeries. In fact, I was first one to have surgery when my son was about 6 months old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, my wife had issues. I'm the one who got fixed.
Right. Hey.
Yeah. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
But, and other news, this is related to wrestling. This is, and even though we're talking about two NFL players, this week, we lost NFL. I want to say, I think it's, I don't know if he's in Hall of Fame or not. If he's not, he should be. But NFL former tight end Russ Francis, and he passed away in a plane crash a couple days ago. When he was piloting, he was actually a pilot,
Oh wow.
and and um, Dick Butkus died earlier today. All I
Hmm.
saw was died in his sleep. He was 80 years old. Russ Francis was 70 years old,
Yeah.
and they both participated in the battle royal in WrestleMania 2. Russ Francis was actually in the ring. Dick Butkus was one of the special referees. By the way, Russ Francis, he was a wrestler anyway. He wrestled part
Oh,
time in the
okay.
off season.
I didn't know
Um,
that.
yep. At one point, he and his brother were the NWA Hawaii Tag Team Champions.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, but I remember I knew he wrestled years and years ago, even before that battle royal, because I remember talking to my dentist about it. Because my dentist was named Bob Horton, and so I say, oh, kind of like Bob Orton, and he had no idea who it was,
Yeah.
but I actually mentioned, I thought, oh yeah, there's the football player, tight end Russ Francis. He's like, Russ Francis wrestles. It's amazing the conversations I remember from like 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
but um, but yeah, the world we lost both of them this week. I don't even know if WWE they might mention it. You never know.
They might. They might mention it tomorrow on SmackDown.
Yep. SmackDown going to be moving back to USA.
Hmm.
So does that mean Raw is going to stay on USA?
Um, no. From what I saw, SmackDown is going back to USA, but Raw and NXT won't be on USA. They're getting shopped around, probably because USA is spending so much money. I forget the time frame. I think it's 5 years, but I think it's a $3 billion
Ooh.
television rights deal for SmackDown to be back on USA. Um, Fox, you know, didn't try to keep SmackDown because they didn't want to pay that asking price that WWE was wanting. Um, so now Raw and SmackDown and Raw and NXT potentially could be moving from USA. And there's several like Amazon is interested in it because they would love to put that on Prime Video and get more subscribers there. Trying to think who else was.
Now, would it be live on Prime Video?
I don't know if it would be live or if it'd be similar to Hulu where you get to watch it the next day after it airs. I'm not sure how that would work with Prime Video. Um, I think Peacock, of course, there was some interest through Peacock itself, and but I don't know how that would work tied in with NBC Universal. So, but I don't know. And
Uh,
something cool though, I did find out is that there is an extremely good chance that AEW programming will be shown on Max because that is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, which
uh,
owns
that's
TNT and
right.
TBS.
Yeah, because it was
Yep.
like HBO, Time Warner, all that. I didn't even think about
Yep.
that.
Yeah, because it was HBO Max, and then Warner Brothers, which owned HBO and all that stuff, and they did the merger with Discovery, and so now they're called Warner Brothers Discovery, and they are very pleased with AEW's ratings, even though everybody's like, "Oh, their ratings are terrible," and Warner
No,
Brothers has got to be upset about it. Warner Brothers is perfectly fine with their ratings. They're still, and they're like, well, they're not WWE ratings for a 4-year-old company. Barely 4 years as of a few days ago.
yep.
You know,
And
they
half of their existence, they had to play to empty arenas.
Exactly. Half their existence, they played to no fans, and they've been able to have ratings, you know, close to 1 million per episode. They still sold out Wembley.
Yep.
Uh, you know, it's like people just want them. It's that tribalism that gets on my nerves because it's like,
Yes.
just stop. If you don't like AEW, just don't watch it. But why would you want it to fail? And then all of these people are out of a job.
Exactly.
I,
And
I, I never want it to go back to how it was in 2001, where it was just WWE and nobody else. That's not interesting to me. For their own
oh,
to only be one major wrestling company.
that's why I still think, if we could get some way of bringing a semblance of the territory days back,
Hmm.
because it gives everybody places to
And that's the
go.
thing. I feel like the indies are doing that. I know we've said that several times on the show, but I feel like that's what the indies are to this generation of wrestling, to this era of pro wrestling. The indies are the territories. The problem is you've got WWE is still trying to gobble up everything
Hmm.
because, for them to be like, oh, we're not afraid of anybody, but let's gobble up the British wrestling scene when it got hot, and let's try to go to Japan and do an NXT Japan over there, and that didn't work because New Japan and All Japan were like, no, no, you're not coming in and gobbling us up like you did everybody else. No, that's not working. We don't need you. That's basically what they told them, is they didn't need them.
I'm kind of wondering now, with OVW all of a sudden being probably the hottest indie. I mean, they were
Hmm.
already kind of the biggest indie company in at least the United States as it was,
Hmm.
but that was because their former affiliation with WWE.
Yep.
And now Al Snow, of course, he's been running it for years.
Hmm.
And I don't know, have you had a chance to catch Wrestlers yet?
I have not. It is on my list, but I haven't had a chance to catch it yet.
You definitely got to watch it. Apparently now they're talking about like a second season.
I
Um,
saw a headline of that on Twitter earlier that um, a second season was being considered because of how popular this one was.
and Al Snow reposted my whatever you want to call it on Twix. But he actually, I'll say it. He retweeted something I
Hmm.
said. I tagged. I said, "Yeah, you definitely got to go watch Wrestlers," and he retweeted. Said, "Thank you." So of course, Al Snow, got to give a shout out to our boys at the Dad World Order podcast. They had
Yep.
Al Snow on their show, um, and it was not a real long interview because Al Snow is very very busy.
Yeah, he's a busy man. Yeah.
He's a busy man. But I mean, I thought it went really well. I had a couple of questions that I put in the comments, and they actually read them out. Because if you never had a chance to watch the DWO's podcast on YouTube, definitely go check it out. And if you can catch it live, even better. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, because you can actually interact with the guys, um, whether it be Mike, Eric, or um, wrestling t-shirt guy. That's what we're gonna call him, because
Hmm.
he's got a record going, like how many days in a row, like wearing a different wrestling
Wrestling
t-shirt.
t-shirt. Yeah.
Yep. So Cephas, but he's got that going on now. And I've actually met all three of them personally, obviously, and um, just great guys. They have a great show, and for them to get Al Snow, I mean, that's some pretty
Yeah.
cool stuff.
Yeah.
And
That was a good. Yeah, that was a big get. Yeah.
but they did a really good show, and they, anytime somebody will post something kind of like a question, they try to make sure they get everybody's in there.
Hmm.
So they've yeah, definitely great podcast. Also, of course, we got to say, go check out Ted the Hillbilly Heel,
Yep.
the Podfather, and Ted's just an awesome dude, and he's always given Dwaylon and myself good feedback. I mean,
Hmm.
he'll text us directly,
Yeah.
tell us congratulations. Of course, he told Dwaylon congratulations, on being a dad again. And, he's actually texted me a couple things and just asked, how's the wife doing and things like
Hmm.
that. So just a super, just awesome guy. and he runs one of the best podcasts there is. I mean,
Oh yeah.
he really was the glue that kind of brought everybody together.
Hmm.
Also, our boy BC Hunter with Wrestling with the Truth, Wrestling with the War, Wrestling with the 80s. He's another old school guy who does a great job, and he gives us shout outs because that's what we do. We all support each other, and
Yep.
go check out his podcast. When I say old school, I mean he goes like back to the stuff that makes Dwaylon and I feel like we're kids again.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and and we have a great appreciation for all the same things. Just love listening to BC's show. Also, Finish Your Wrestling. Definitely got to give those guys
Yeah.
a lot of love, because they had Dwaylon and I 2 weeks in a row. Well,
Hmm.
okay, they had me 2 weeks in a row. The first one, I mean, you were making them dollar bills,
Yep. Yep.
and when somebody's making dollar bills, you can't expect them just to stop because all they do is say, "Look, dollar bills, done." But the very next week, you were able to come on, and then I ended
Hmm.
up joining late, and then I had to leave early. But
Yeah.
always love talking to those guys. I mean, they great analytical minds. I said it before. I
Hmm.
mean, and I don't mind saying it again. I mean, just great analytical minds. I mean, they come from some of the the ideas that they come up with. I'm like, you know what? That kind of makes
Yeah.
sense. You know, but love being on the show. And in fact, when my wife had her surgery, they actually reached out to me directly and just asked how she was doing and things like
Yeah,
that.
they
So,
reached out to me directly a couple of days ago. Asked me about, heard I had an ear infection. Hope I got the feeling better.
and see that, and that's the kind of guys they are. So
Hmm.
go check them out because um, if we just know people are just great people all around, we're going to endorse them.
Hmm. Yep.
And that's even beyond podcast. But definitely go check out their podcast though, because we're gonna be back on theirs again. We know they're gonna be back on ours again.
Hmm.
So and I know I'm missing some people. Of course, Justin. God, I always got to mention him again, but he's busy having a baby, so he may not be he may not be putting anything
Yeah.
out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, non-wrestling, true crime cast, bless their hearts, mixtape, the Nerdcast Empire, which is that they've only had 10 episodes so far, but they seem to be pretty solid.
Yeah.
Um, and they've already said we're try to figure out some kind of collaboration because
Hmm.
they they have the same kind of barrier sometimes that we do where, hey, you have jobs, you have life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it just gets in the way. And,
Yeah.
because there have been times that we've tried to have somebody scheduled to be on the show. And then all of a sudden we couldn't do it, or all of a sudden they couldn't do
They
it.
couldn't
And,
do it. Yeah.
so, um, yeah, so whenever we've had, I can't remember who it was now, but it was like we tried to set it up for like a month and we finally were able to get it done.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, I know Jamie and John from True Crime Cast. That one we had to reschedule like 3 times before,
Yeah.
and then the last time, all of a sudden, you had a family emergency pop up last second.
Yeah.
It was like,
Last second couldn't. Yeah.
yeah, and you said go ahead. I'm like, all right, and because I mean, we just if
Yeah.
we had to reschedule again, it may have been hard. We don't know, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, so we love supporting other podcasters, and because it is a great big family. We said it before, and I know we kind of sound like a broken record when we say that, but I mean, if you get into it, you really understand what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Everybody's helping each other out, giving advice, giving good feedback, constructive feedback. Actually, no, I'll give a shout out to our friend Randy, Rescue Randy. He's always giving me
Yep.
good constructive feedback. Um, and ideas. Always got to say Kyle has always given us good ideas. Kyle's been on the show, and that's former co-host Kyle,
Hmm.
but he's always given us good ideas. And Kyle's uh, you want to talk about a beast when it comes to weightlifting?
Oh yeah.
Oh my lord. Um, he sent me a video of him doing a bench, and I had never saw. I'll have to maybe I could forward it to you, but he has spotters, and the type of weight that Kyle's putting up, you have to have spotters.
Hmm.
It would
Yeah.
be extremely dangerous to do it without a spotter.
Yeah.
But they had a board like some 2x4s that were kind of nailed together, and they had it like sitting on his chest when the bar came
Hmm.
down. So the bar didn't come down all the way, and then he was pushing back up again. And the amount of weight that was on there, I'm just looking at all these plates on there going, is that like every plate in the gym? I mean, I was like, so when you say, Kyle can put up some weight, I mean, I that is not an exaggeration, because I mean, he's putting up the kind of numbers that you go, that's not human. That is,
Yeah.
I mean, so, um, but yeah, that's our friend, Kyle. He's been very supportive of us, and he's giving us ideas, and he's had questions for us, and so we always encourage people also, if you have questions, send them to us,
Hmm.
armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on socials on Facebook. If you are friends with us outside of the podcast, if you are on our personal Facebook, which I know a lot of people are, hit us up through that. Send us
Yeah.
a message. Same thing on Twix. Now I do separate my personal Twitter. I really don't do a lot. I don't do a lot with my personal Twitter anyway. But the podcast Twitter is at Booking Armchair. You can also hit up Dwaylon at the Rockstar 73.
Yep.
Hit us up, give us some ideas, because Dwaylon also has his podcast, The Intellectual Rockstar. But something about having an ear infection and a pregnant wife, it's kind of hard to record.
Yeah, it's been kind of hard to record. I've actually got I was doing the series about Batman villains, and one of my favorite storylines that have come out with a bunch of different Batman villains is the Dark Multiverse, which is where there's all these different evil versions of Batman. You've got
Hmm.
one that's the Flash, you got one that's Green Lantern. Of course, you got the Batman Who Laughs, which is Batman and the Joker combined. Um, you've got one that's a version of Aquaman. There's several, so I think I'm going to discuss those when I do get time to record.
Uh, my son has been really getting into Batman lately,
Hmm.
like even more than what he was before. And there was something he was wanting me to. Oh, actually, this has nothing to do with Batman necessarily. For his birthday yesterday, my wife had gotten him a G.I. Joe figure, and she took
Hmm.
one look at it, and she's like, "Oh my God, this figure looks like Dwaylon." And and she showed it to me,
Uh-huh.
and it does. I'm like, wow, you know what? It really does. Um, yeah, speaking of Batman, I actually got him these not too long ago,
Oh, cool.
and then he just let them sit on the floor. So I brought them in the office, and he hasn't noticed that they're gone yet. So, and I got these both at like a CVS pharmacy,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was the only two they had left, and they're both and they're of course, looks like the classic from the '60s Batman, and then um, I don't know, you would know better than I would.
That is the new 52 version
Okay.
of Batman. It was a storyline where DC tried to reboot everything, kind of refresh the whole
Mm.
universe, and then it lasted a few years and then didn't go like they planned. So then they rebooted everything again. And so, yeah.
And that's why we have multiverses.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and it's wild. I think wrestling can also kind of have multiverses in a way.
Hmm. Yep.
Well, at least it used to, because the character you had in Mid Atlantic was not necessarily the same character you had when they went to WWF.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's even like that now. It's like Matt Cardona, for instance. The Matt Cardona that you see on the Indies and was, NWA World Heavyweight Champion, sure ain't Zack Ryder.
No.
So,
Um, or back in the day when somebody was wrestling in different territories at the same
hmm.
time, and they would have different
Yeah,
characters. Well,
yeah.
Ric Flair was a face in the Carolinas, but he was a heel everywhere else.
Hmm. Yep.
So and sometimes somebody would put on a mask in one place and not have a mask on another, and
Yeah.
oh, but speaking of people leaving WWE, and I don't know if this person is going to have um any kind of character anytime soon, because I think just by his actions, he may have burned some bridges without even, knowing about it. Matt Riddle.
Here's the thing.
Hmm.
Talent wise, Matt Riddle was good.
Very good.
He
Yep.
was better. Honestly, he was better. He was still better on the indies. I think it's because the chains were off. He was allowed to be as good as he could possibly be on the independent scene. WWE, of course, you got to work that WWE style, and
Hmm.
some people can work around that and still have excellent matches. And some people I feel like get to a wall because it's like the style that they're capable of doing is not, you can't do it within that system.
Right.
And that's just how it is. Some people can, Seth Rollins, world class professional wrestler before he ever got to WWE. He figured out a way to work around those restrictions that WWE places on their wrestlers, even though they claim they don't, they do. They have
They
their
do.
particular style that they want you to wrestle. Seth Rollins figured out how to work around that. AJ Styles works around that. Of course, AJ Styles is amazing, and we've all seen what he was able to do everywhere else anyway.
Hmm.
But I think Matt Riddle hit that wall. I also think they played way too much into the stoner character. You know, it went from,
Bro.
yeah, and it went from just because that was his gimmick on the indies. He was the original bro, but he didn't lean into it that hard. It's like, he was he was more happy go lucky on the indies, not the goofball stoner that they WWE turned him into. And then after he gets released, these reports are coming out about how he has heat backstage and was burning bridges to that, and he got suspended even before the release. He uh, got suspended, had to go to rehab for 6 months, so they wrote him off TV and all this stuff. And I think it just got to the point where there was just he had burned too many bridges, had been given too many chances, and they were just like, we're done. And the final straw was when and I'm not saying it didn't happen, but he accused, his accusation was that he was sexually harassed at the airport by,
A security guard.
TSA. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it didn't happen because, I wasn't there. I never want to, you know, take that from a potential victim and just automatically assumed all that didn't happen. Just because he's a wrestler doesn't mean he can't be sexually,
Exactly.
sexually harassed, sexually assaulted. It does, that can happen to anybody. I think it was just another negative thing that WWE was like, well, we just did this merger with, Endeavor. Endeavor just bought us basically, and we need to look as squeaky clean as possible. And he's the red flag.
When the incident that happened in the airport, he was apparently extremely drunk and extremely belligerent.
Yep, I've
And
seen that. I've seen that too, which I mean, sadly, doesn't help his case any. If
yeah,
if if he was, sexually assaulted, I feel terrible for him, and especially because people are going to be like, well, he was drunk and belligerent, so he's probably making it up anyway, and it will invalidate what actually happened
exactly.
because people are going to focus on his intoxication instead of finding out the facts of what actually happened.
And we don't want to speculate one way or the other,
No,
because we weren't, like you said, we weren't there. I can read all the headlines all day long that I want
yeah,
to, but we weren't there until he actually comes out and said, and I don't know if he has actually said, okay, I apologize. It didn't actually happen.
from what I've
Mm,
seen, he hasn't. yeah, he hasn't said that it didn't happen. He hasn't come out and, you know, retracted his statement or anything like that.
Right. So, but I do hope he can land somewhere because he is extremely talented. Um, even if he goes back to MMA because he's a legit MMA fighter.
It won't be with UFC because
Nope.
Dana White has said he burned that bridge. Um, Probably because he failed several tests for marijuana because marijuana is not, it is a banned substance in sports.
I don't see how
Uh,
it's performance enhancing.
I don't either.
I really don't.
I don't see that either. That's why I never understood why that one was, banned in sport. It's not and
If you're handicapping yourself, I don't see
exactly. But
can't
and
find your way to
that,
the arena. You forgot how to get there. That's not
yeah,
enhancing.
Dana White doesn't like him. He's burned a lot of bridges with UFC. Plus, now that UFC is under, you know,
Endeavor.
Endeavor, he got released from WWE. They ain't letting him go to UFC.
So Impact. That's the only one I can think of.
He could go to Impact. He could go to Japan. He could go to Bellator.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I do know he's got, I have seen reports. He's had personal issues going on and stuff. I just hope he's able to get everything straightened out
Yep.
because I've seen him like on in Major League Wrestling. I saw a match with him and Shane Strickland, who was in WWE. He was Isaiah Swerve Scott, and in AEW he's Swerve Strickland. The world title was vacant in Major League Wrestling. They were in the finals of a tournament. Excellent match. Matt Riddle came out. He's high fiving the fans. He trades his baseball cap with a fan. He
That's
jumps in the
cool.
ring. All that stuff. Bell rang. Serious as a heart attack. Got right down to business. And I think when he first got to WWE, of course, that was under Triple H's NXT. They did that. He was happy go lucky and everything, and was right there with the fans. And then bell rang, and he was the striker. He was going for the knockout. He gets to the main roster, and they turn him into the big goofball, and it's like that's only going there's a ceiling for that type of character. That's why nobody, when he wrestled Roman Reigns for the Universal title, nobody, there was not a soul. I can guarantee there was not a soul who thought, oh, Matt Riddle's winning the world title. No, he's not,
Mm-mm.
because people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand, oh, so and so should have got the world title. So and so. If everything went by talent, half of the world champions in all of professional wrestling would have never been world champion. If talent alone was the measure. But you've got to be able to be a face of the company that you're the champion of. There was no way WWE was going to make a stoner character the face of their company.
No,
They
not
just weren't.
not
Just
even
just
even in the Attitude Era. I don't think they would have.
even in the Attitude Era, I mean, you had the blue collar guy, you had Austin, you had The Rock, you had Triple H, you had The Undertaker, Mick Foley, but they didn't have Val Venus as the face of the company.
No,
You know,
no, that wouldn't. Yeah, that
they didn't have The Godfather as the face of the company. Both very talented wrestlers, but character wise, that's not who you put out front.
actually Charles Wright. The Godfather. They should have made him the Soul Taker again. I would have been happy with that.
I'd have been happy with Papa Shango because I loved Papa Shango.
I was big into
Uh,
Soul Taker before he even went to WWF. Soul Taker. That was that was my favorite Charles Wright character. But
but you know what I'm saying? It's like they they do. It's not just Matt Riddle. He was just the latest in a long list of wrestlers who get saddled with a gimmick that there's a ceiling to
yep,
that they can never get through.
or a low. ceiling.
or a very low.
You
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Eh,
come think about it. I'm glad you actually said the ceiling part because it just now hit me. Every gimmick has a ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
just the
Some
ceiling's
some are just
higher.
lower than others. Yeah.
Exactly.
And Matt Riddle's, it was. I mean, they even leaned into it when he was teaming Randy Orton. They had the RK 420 shirt and all this stuff, and it's like being a stoner guy is low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
The bar is real. The ceiling is real low for that character. Nobody's ever going to take him seriously as the world champion of the biggest wrestling company in the world.
Yep. Um, and WWE, the way they switch people around once they get to the main roster, it's like a lot of the teams you see in the NFL.
Hmm.
You have a quarterback, who's just tearing it up in college.
Hmm.
They get to the NFL. All right, we're going to make you a wide receiver. It's like
Exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I never
It's
understood that.
perfect analogy. It's like you saw what got them to the dance. I know I said this a million times. They'll see what gets them to the dance. They'll see what gets it's like, oh, look at that talent. You know, and then they're interested because they see the talent. But then they get them there and it's like, oh, we know you're a talented, technical wrestler, but I want you to be a brawler over here. And then they get beat up and it's like, well, why isn't this working? Because they're a technical wrestler, not a brawler.
Exactly. I mean, and you do have some who can do a little bit of
You have
everything,
some they can do both. Like
but
Steve Austin was a great technical wrestler. People don't get that because Stone Cold was such
and
a larger than life
yes,
character. But when he was coming through Texas, and, he was stunning Steve Austin when he was in WCW. He was going overseas to Japan. He was an amazing technical wrestler. He was still doing some technical stuff when he first got to WWE, even as Stone Cold. But when the neck injury happened, he changed his style to more the brawler because it was actually a safer style than
mm-hmm,
the technical stuff. Because the technical stuff you can get tied up and hurt pretty bad.
yep.
So, but the brawling style gave him a lot more freedom to be able to still compete, have good matches, but protect himself at the same time.
And speaking of Matt Riddle, the stoner running back in the NFL, who was just beyond talented, but most people don't recognize that because he was known more for, look, I like my weed. Is
Hmm.
Ricky Williams?
Ricky Williams played for the Dolphins. Yep.
Yep, yep. He was drafted first by the Saints because that's when Ditka traded every other draft pick he had just to get Ricky Williams. And I'm like, are you
Yep.
trying to have another heart attack?
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And then he ended up going to the
going to
Dolphins
Dolphins,
and
and he
was
did
suspended.
decent. Yeah,
He did decent
but
the times that he played because he was suspended more than he played because
yes, he
he
liked his
kept
weed.
failing. He liked his weed and kept failing the test. And
Like I said, it to me, it's not performance enhancing,
no,
but they still
but
say,
they did.
look, it's banned.
Yeah, they still say it's banned. So I mean, you still got to follow the rules. So hopefully Riddle can bounce back, find somewhere. Honestly, I think Impact would be a good fit. It's a
Mm-hmm.
you know, smaller company, smaller shows, you know, and there's more freedom to be yourself. There's more freedom to wrestle the way you're capable of wrestling.
Yep.
And I think that would benefit him a whole lot. Plus that terrible WWE schedule.
Yeah. Um.
Impact doesn't have that type of schedule, and they're allowed to work other places. So he could still work for Impact, still be on TV, so he's still getting that national exposure, but he could still work indies. He could still work in Japan and, you know, become that well-rounded pro wrestler again because I feel like they took that from him once he got to the main roster. It was like
Yep.
occasionally they would let him have a great match. You know, they would kind of dial back on the Stoner's character so much, but then most of the time he was comic relief. And it's like he's better than that. regardless of what his personal issues, he needs to get those in check, whatever they may be. But professionally, he deserved better than what they gave him.
I mean, we know, look, you were a middle linebacker. We want you to play strong safety.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just you can't take people out of what they're good at and just randomly, you know,
This,
give them something else. You can't take a wrestler who's good at this. Matt Riddle's a striker and a technical guy. You can't just take him out of that and be like, oh well, I need you to be this goofball comic relief character and not do any of the things that made you what you are.
and good luck trying to get, because actually his style would be perfect for Japan, any of the
Oh yeah.
Japanese
Yeah.
companies. Good luck getting that though, because now he has the thing. Well, I mean, because he was intoxicated. Now I don't know.
Uh-huh.
He's pop positive on drug tests for weed. Has he ever been arrested though?
Not that I'm aware of that I don't think he's been arrested. It's not it wasn't a Van Dam situation. It
Uh,
wasn't a Rob, it wasn't an RVD situation. I don't think he's been like arrested for possession. I think the issue is whenever he is drug tested, he fails for
he
marijuana.
fails like all the time.
Like
And
constantly, like probably every test he takes, he fails.
yeah, he just walks in there, he's like, I'm failing anyway.
Yeah.
you know, and but Japan, I mean, their government, when they're pretty strict about allowing people in who
Hmm.
have,
Yep.
if you've ever been charged with or have been convicted of it, good luck getting into Japan. But
Why,
I think
why
his
Jeff
style,
Hardy ain't going to Japan?
yeah, Jeff Hardy is not going to Japan anytime soon. Matt Hardy is
Nope.
not going to Japan anytime soon,
Nope.
because we forget Matt he's also been popped for stuff too, but just not.
Yeah, Matt's been popped for stuff, but just not to the extent of Jeff. Matt had his demons. He had his dark, his dark few years. Like after he left WWE, he was in TNA, and it was pretty rough. The first time he was in TNA, it was pretty rough. But Matt was able to turn that around and get himself together and stay clean. Jeff is not still not figured out how to stay clean.
And and that's a shame too, um, because I like seeing them, even if it was a Rampage taping, and we know
Hmm.
their best days are behind them. We know that.
Oh yeah.
They know that. They
I mean, they're a nostalgia act at this point, but I mean, the fans still dig it. So,
yeah. Um, I would love to be able to get them on the podcast.
hmm.
And a lot of that for me, it's actually personal reasons, just
Right,
because,
right.
just like if we had somebody from Hopkinsville,
Oh yeah.
love to get them
Or
on. Same
or
reason.
even like if we had Ricochet on the show.
Yes,
He's
because
from Paducah.
he's
I
from
live in
Paducah.
Paducah.
Yep. Although he's being billed now as being from Vegas.
Yeah, I saw that. It's like
Listen to
it,
his accent. His accent is Western Kentucky.
yeah, I've never figured it out though, and we've probably talked about this before. It's like Vince McMahon hates everything quote unquote Southern unless it's from Texas.
Because Texas is Texas.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the stars that came out of Texas that were big stars that worked for him, and they always got to keep the fact that they were from Tech. When Undertaker was, biker taker, Houston,
But I
Texas.
say when he was Biker Taker, every other time he was Death
It was
Valley.
Death Valley. Yeah, but when he was, American Badass, he was billed from Houston, Texas. You
Okay.
got Mark Henry from Silsbee, Shawn Michaels from San Antonio, Steve Austin from Victoria, you know,
Booker T from Houston.
Booker T from Houston. You know, it's like Texas is okay, but like Kentucky's not. And it's like, Texas is more southern than Kentucky is, right?
But I mean, you know how the mindset is, because Texas are like, we're from Texas.
We're from Texas.
We're from
Yeah.
Texas. Don't say we're from the West. Don't say we're from the South. Don't say we're from the Southwest. We're from
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
And there's some debate, because all the people I met in the military are from Texas. Love the people, by the way. I mean, so,
It's like
but
Texas
it's
thinks that they're not a part of the US. They think they're an island unto themselves.
yes, and don't ever tell somebody in Texas, oh, Oklahoma, same thing. No,
Yeah.
that won't fly. I mean, of course, granted, you say Kentucky and Tennessee, same thing. They don't get as irate, but they go, yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah.
North Carolina, South Carolina, no, it's not the same thing. They're in the same family,
No.
but they're not.
The only thing I ever say about Tennessee is that their most of their residents do not know how to drive.
You've never been to Ohio.
No.
I just leave it at that. So, um, but with Vince McMahon, like I said, him for some reason not liking Southern
Yeah.
wrestling, even though Vince was born and raised in North Carolina. Vince McMahon was actually born in Pinehurst, North Carolina, same place I was born, same place the Hardy Boys, Shannon Moore, um, a few other ones were born, and he grew up in Havelock,
Yeah.
right near Cherry Point Marine Corps Air Station, and didn't have a privileged life then because, well, his dad was not really around.
Hmm.
He grew up with some stepdads, and he actually didn't know his birth name was McMahon until he
Right.
was like a teenager. But I don't know. I mean, it must be some kind of psychological thing with him where he doesn't want to be thought of as being from the South, even though
Hmm.
he is definitely. And Linda McMahon is also,
Hmm.
from the South. They met in church, and then
Right.
they both went to East Carolina University. And that's Vince is a graduate of East Carolina.
Hmm.
He's a pirate,
Yeah.
and
Like
but
he picks and chooses though because you've got Bianca Belair, who's still announced she's from Knoxville, Tennessee.
yep,
That they still announce her from Knoxville, Tennessee. Cody Rhodes from Atlanta, Georgia. It's like so some states are okay and some aren't, or is it because he thinks nobody knows where Paducah is in Kentucky? So let's just because for a while they didn't even announce where it went from in NXT. They always said from Paducah, Kentucky, weighing blah 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 Ricochet. He got to the main roster. First few months, they announced he was from Paducah, Kentucky, and then all of a sudden it was just Ricochet. Didn't announce where he was from, didn't announce his weight, just hit his music. He did his entrance, came out, they just announced his name. And it's like, why take that from people? It's like, especially a guy who grew up, compared to a lot of these other people in wrestling, he grew up in a small town and has literally traveled the world.
mm-hmm,
Ricochet has wrestled in Japan. He has some of the best light heavyweight matches in the history of Japanese wrestling with Will Ospreay. Their series of matches over there, a lot of the old heads don't like them because they said it's a lot of, a lot of choreographed stuff and gymnastics and blah, 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 blah. All wrestling's choreographed one way or another. What do you think calling spots is? You're
yep.
choreographing on the fly. Is all you're doing with calling spots.
And Paducah, I would say what population probably about what 25,000, 30,000 ish.
Probably.
And so it's actually grown from the time that we lived in Hopkinsville,
Yeah.
which Hopkinsville has been about 30,000 now for like the past 35
I
years.
actually looked it up the other day because I was talking to a guy at the dealership where we're set up for the food truck because he's a traveling car salesman.
Okay.
He was at the dealership that we're working at. He had come from Hopkinsville the week prior from working at a dealership there, and he asked, and I told him I'm from there, and we got to talking. So I looked up the population. I think Hopkinsville's at 41,000. Is the last census was 41 or 42,000, and Paducah is like I think just a little over 30,000.
Okay. So they
And
have both grown then.
yeah, they've both grown, but it's like if it was me, I would insist on being announced from my hometown,
I mean, and just like the Hardy Boys from Cameron, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Yeah,
Cameron, North Carolina is, last I checked, it was like 500 people.
yeah.
I mean,
Hardcore Holly is from Mobile, Alabama,
yeah,
and they always announced it.
yeah. I mean, now granted, Mobile is a,
Yeah,
you know,
of course, Bob Holly probably said, "I'll split your head open if you don't say where I'm
yeah.
from."
And I
Because
imagine, I mean, now the Hardy Boys probably didn't say, "I'll split your head open." I can see
yeah,
Bob Holly saying it.
I'm
But,
telling you, he
but,
probably he
I,
probably told Vince it's not going to go good for you if you don't say where I'm from.
and, you've seen the kind of stuff Bob Holly will do to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
He, yeah, some dude got a ticket in his rental car
Yep.
and he beat the dude up in the ring. I
Oh
can't
yeah.
remember who it was,
Uh,
but
another Eddie Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero, El Paso, Texas.
yep. Oh, yeah, I forgot about it. Yeah, because the Guerreros, I mean, they were like right there. They were really
Mm-hmm.
on both sides of the border there.
Yep.
Legends everywhere.
Excuse me.
Um, and now I'm trying to think of everybody from Texas. So, of course, I mean the Von Erichs. I mean they were Dallas.
Bray Windham from Sweetwater.
Sweetwater. Yep. But yeah, the Hardy Boys being from Cameron, they have always been announced as being from Cameron, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure they insisted on that, and I'm very
Oh, I'm
glad
sure.
about that. They could have easily somebody could have said, "Well, we'll just say they're from Fayetteville."
Mm,
No. Okay, how about Sanford?
yeah.
Sanford's, it's a little bit bigger. It's like 10,000 people. To me, when I lived in North Carolina, there Sanford was like this big city. Now I'm going, really? I thought that was a big city. So then I moved to Hopkinsville and I thought Hopkinsville was just this huge, huge place.
Yeah.
Area wise, Hopkinsville is still a huge,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And most people, if you've ever driven to Hopkinsville, Kentucky, if you've ever been there, you realize what we're talking about. It is spread out so far.
Yeah. The land mass is huge. You know, actual, you know, people population may be small, but like Steve said, it is spread out. It is a lot bigger than you think.
Yep. My wife, the first time she ever went to Hopkinsville, this is right after we got married. She could not believe how spread out,
Mm-hmm.
the town was. But, but anyway, um, so I'm trying to think what everything else has been going on in wrestling. We saw Edge is now Adam Copeland
Mm-hmm.
is now in AEW, and you're talking about, of course, the ratings are still high on TV. Their live attendance, and I think this also happened. It's been happening in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
The live attendance has been abysmal.
Oh yeah, the live attendance has been terrible except for the pay-per-views. Their pay-per-views have still been a sellout. I think it's just, especially with AEW, they've put out, and I'll give them credit, they've put out excellent shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have been the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view where Athena and Willow Nightingale main evented, match of the year candidate. I finally got to watch it. It was amazing. It was for me. It was right up there with Bianca and Sasha from WrestleMania. It was that good.
Oh, I need to catch it
Um,
then.
and then like the last three pay-per-views that they've had, All In, All Out, Wrestle Dream, have all been extremely successful pay-per-views. Quality wise, have been seeing nothing but positive reviews about them. But I think people are just wore out, and also people are broke.
That was
The
my, yeah. I think
to
that's another.
put it
People are
bluntly,
broke.
people are broke. I mean, everything costs a fortune nowadays. It's like it costs just as much it's actually getting to where it's cheaper to eat out than it is to cook at home because food prices are so high.
Yeah,
Uh, gas, I know here, gas is about $3.30 a gallon.
we're about 350 something. So not
Uh,
too
in
far off, but
in Illinois, it's almost $4 a gallon.
yeah.
Um, it's just, you know, money's tight and people have spent money on, you got either $60 a pop for the pay-per-view or however much tickets are to these shows. And it's after a while, people are just like, I can't do it. I don't have the money to go. I gotta I got to recoup from all this other stuff that I've done. Plus, you got fall break, and people like to take little mini vacations on fall break, and then Thanksgiving's going to be coming. Well, if you got small kids, you got Halloween coming, then Thanksgiving,
then
and Christmas, and birthdays sprinkled in between. It's just the economy. The economy will not. This economy is not going to allow live attendance to always be sellouts. It's just not. And I think I think WWE just knows how. The thing is with AEW, they're still people don't understand they're still an extremely young company, regardless of how successful they've been. They still haven't figured out the smoke and mirrors of how to make it look like it's full on TV, even though it's not. And the bad thing about social media is people love posting negative things about pro wrestling, especially if it's the company they don't like, because they're too, instead of worried about the talent and the match quality, they're worried about the three letters of the company. And you've got so many people that want AEW to fail that they're quick to put online how, low the attendance was. Oh, well, this arena is supposed to seat 17,000 people, but there was only 5,000 people in attendance. Same thing has happened to WWE, and it's happening at Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
So
which is the mecca of professional wrestling.
Exactly.
And
WWE can't sell out the Garden, and they ain't sold out the Garden in years.
And one of the things, like you were saying about the economy and people are broke, the Fan Fest that I just went to this past weekend. Now, had I known about this beforehand, I might not have gone.
Right.
Every other Fan Fest I've been to, normally the price for autograph or picture or combo, it was 20, 20, 30. 20 for an autograph, 20 for a picture, 30 if you want to do both.
Right.
This time it was 30, 30, 50.
Oh.
Yeah, it went up 50%.
Wow.
Yeah. And and don't get me wrong, I still paid. So now I had to really pick and choose.
Right.
Which ones? The first one I actually met was Magnum TA because 13-year-old me was just marking out. I even told him that. I said 13-year-old me is marking out right now. Which, by the way, hopefully we can get him on the podcast.
Yeah,
I need to get off my rear end and actually message some of these people. By the way, I got so much stuff going on, I kind of forget.
Yeah, it's like you get life.
Yeah, life. I mean, trying to take care of my wife who's like half crippled right now. I mean, trying her and my son. My daughter's actually here right now with us. She drove in today because his birthday being yesterday, and she came down. She wasn't able to come down yesterday, but she has a dental appointment down here tomorrow, and then of course Saturday we're going to go. My in-laws have another birthday dinner, so she can be there too.
Right.
But at the Fan Fest, all right, you see the shirt I'm wearing right here.
I see it.
Yep. It says Tribal War. This shirt, and that's what I'll say. When I 6 months ago when I went and met Bill Apter, and I said he had the best deal of the day. It was what, $25 for the book, autograph, couple autographs, and he gave a promo for the podcast.
Yep.
Where he renamed it, but that's another story.
Yeah.
This was Rikishi. Rikishi, give me that. And if you can see on the back of the shirt.
Yep, I see it. Yep.
So it was $30 for this shirt, an autograph picture, and to take my picture with him.
Now that's awesome.
That was a hell of a deal.
That's a hell of a deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this shirt that I got at the AEW show was $40.
Just for the shirt.
Just for the shirt.
Yep.
That's not including the ticket price. And I got like the cheap tickets. They were like 24 a piece, and there was only 3 of us who went, but 24 a piece. I mean, that's not including, of course, the fees and then the convenience fee and everything else that you get hit with. And so, I'm like, thankfully we got a little bit of extra right now. I've been able to put some away, but I really don't feel like spending it all on a t-shirt, which, at least WWE show, I will say this, at least WWE, you always get a souvenir cup that says, like has their AEW, they did not have the souvenir cups. They also only had one souvenir like stand.
Right.
Now the cups, when you got a drink, I got a Cincinnati Cyclones cup. So the Cyclones are the semi-pro minor league hockey team. So which by the way, Cincinnati loves their Cyclones. So, but when and this could actually be a totally separate show. So I really don't want to go too much into it, but when you're spending that much money, at the Fan Fest, because I think a lot of people who were there at the Fan Fest were also sitting there with sticker shock, going, how much? And but people will pay it. And here you can do this math in your head real quick. Bret Hart was also there. No, I did not meet Bret Hart. I wouldn't mind meeting Bret Hart, nothing against him, but he was like the headliner for the Fan Fest. He actually sat in the exact same spot Sting sat 6 months ago.
Okay.
So he was up on this balcony at the University of Ohio Chillicothe campus there in their gymnasium. And of course, he's up in the upper level. The line wrapped around the entire gymnasium, wow. Inside. Yeah. $140 minimum. That's like the cheapest price to do the stuff with him. And, now some people doing like the VIP, they're paying like $500 and, and I'm like, yeah, I don't have that. It's either that or eat. And I need to eat. I'm a fat guy. I have to eat.
Yeah. It's like, that's grocery money. That's,
that's could be a car payment. I mean, that's
it could be a car payment. That could be your electric bill, something,
And so you got to think though, there had to have been at any point, but I'll say at least 200 people in the line. And if they all just paid $140, that man just made $28,000 for just sitting there.
Yep.
And that also means that we're in the wrong business. We need to start charging people to just.
I know. I need to just sit in the balcony and charge people to come talk to me. It's like, come on.
But there were some others there who were charging a little bit more, but I mean, most of them were 30, 50. Some I'm like, I want to tell them, yeah, you weren't that famous,
Right.
And I'll say this, as much as what I love Tito Santana, a lot of respect for him. He's one of the ones that arguably on the list of those who should have held a world title at some point. I'm not about to pay his price to get him on the podcast though, because I told you what the price was. I'm not going to say it on air, but I was like, are you kidding me? I almost crapped in my sock. I mean, it was like, whoo. Another person, Larry Zabesco, I liked his price. I may try to reach out and get him on. Magnum never gave a price, but I'll have to message him and find out.
Yeah.
There is somebody else, Ron Mathis. He's a guy. He was part of the show. They call him White Trash Ron Mathis. That's his name. I didn't make it up. That's what he goes by. I'm like, okay, and all right, that's what you do. You, that's what you want to call yourself.
Right.
But he told
me
the business. Yeah, I mean, he's another one. Like, looks can be deceiving because he's got like a look like he's just mean and fierce, super nice. Thankfully, real nice guy. So may try to get him on, and trying to get Crew on. He apologized because he had not seen my email. Because I emailed like, dude, I thought I sent you an email. He's like, what's my booking email? It's like, yeah. He's like, look, he's like, oh, you sure did, didn't you? And he's like, dude, he's like, I am so sorry. And if you know the man himself behind the Careful Crew, super awesome stand-up guy. So I know he was very sincere. He's like, yeah, just hit me up. We'll figure out something, because he does want to come on the show, because I mean, he's just super good guy. But I had my picture taken with him, and I said, I better get it now before you start charging people, because I have a feeling Crew is going to be one. He's like right there. Because even when I was talking to Big Mama Tasha, Tasha Ruffin, about Crew, and she even said, she's like, he is right there. She's like, he's almost, And she's, been there, done that. I mean, she's seen a lot. And of course, her husband, Roger Ruffin, he's really seen a lot. By the way,
Hmm.
she brought a poster. Somebody actually took the picture of Roger when he was the referee at WrestleMania 8 with
Okay.
Bret Hart and Roddy Piper in the Intercontinental title match. Somebody blew it up, made a poster of it. She took it, and Bret Hart actually autographed it.
Oh, cool.
And he said, "I remember him. He was a really good referee."
That's awesome.
Because Tasha said, "Yeah, he's my husband." She's like, "What?" Because there's a little bit of an age difference between them, but
Yeah.
but she's like, "Yeah, it's my husband." And she also talked to Mark Henry because she said one time she was wrestling in Texas and she actually did an earthquake splash on somebody,
Mm.
and she saw Mark Henry and he was marking out about it. And so she actually talked to him about that too. Um, but yeah, the economics of being a wrestling fan anymore, and that's actually, what, that sounds like a good title we can do for a future.
It does. We could do that. Definitely do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of the things that's definitely keeping people away from the arenas.
Hmm.
I had never seen an AEW show. That's actually why I went, but there's been other times where WWE, AEW, other ones have been passing through, and we're going, let me check the bank. The bank says no.
They had a couple of shows in Cape Girardeau last month that I really wanted to go to, but it's like, no, I'm gonna have to pass this year. Usually, like the past couple of years, me and Caden have gone. And while people want to complain about, make fun of AEW, Cape Girardeau house shows weren't sellouts either.
Right.
So,
So, and I know I sent you pictures from the AEW show that,
hmm,
I mean, this was, Dynamite and then the Rampage tapings. And I know I sent you a picture. I mean, I did not post this on social media because I'm like,
right,
I'm
right.
not gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
But I did send it to you going, dude, this is not good. I mean,
Oh,
because
yeah. It was empty. Yeah.
it was empty. You didn't see that on TV. Now I
Yeah.
will say you saw me on TV.
Hmm. Yep.
Not for very long, but I was on TV, and you saw my wife's head. You didn't see my son because he was sitting down sulking. So he was behind somebody. But yeah, I was on TV for a split second, so you saw the armchair booking
Hmm.
T-shirt. But yeah, it was still a good time though, and that's what I think a lot of people forget about. Go
Yeah.
have a good time.
That's the
Um,
thing. It's just have a good time. It's like there's really been there hasn't been as good of a time to be a pro wrestling fan as like except for when we were kids and had the territories and could watch,
yep.
had so many options of where you could watch wrestling. We've got that now, and people are too busy trying to, you know, be a mark for one particular company. And it's like if that's what you like, that's fine, but don't dog somebody else because they like an alternative.
And sometimes I want to tell the fans, who are, like you said, a mark for a certain company. They have a loyalty to a certain company. You're still not part of their stories.
You're not part of their stories. You're not making any of their money. That's the biggest thing. It's like you're not getting paid to be such a supporter of this company, to be just insanely supportive. They don't know who you are. So you're a drop in the bucket as far as
Yep.
fans go for them. It's like just there was a guy at an AEW show that held up a sign and it was extremely simple and to the point. He said, "I watch both."
Boom.
That's all. That's it. That's all you got to do. And if you
Yep.
don't want to watch both, then don't. But
And
I've seen people on social media. I mean, we have, we have friends in common that have posted on social media talking about how a particular company, you know, isn't any good and didn't give them credit for doing anything. And it's like, if you like a particular company and that's what you prefer, that's fine. But let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. If you don't like this other particular company over here, then just don't watch it. But being negative about it on social media is not. It just makes you look bad.
mm-hmm.
Doesn't make the company you don't like bad.
I mean, and I'll say this before we do in the we actually do have to
Yeah,
go. Um,
yeah.
I saw something posted, and I know you saw it too, where somebody, and I don't remember if it was a wrestler who actually said this, or somebody else, or maybe a journalist who said, when wrestlers go from one company to another, their former coworkers, former teammates,
Hmm.
congratulate them, wish them the best of luck, say, "Hey, I hope you do well. Hope to see you again down the road. Maybe, hope,
Yeah.
hey, I want you to do good."
Yeah.
And they said, "I wish the fans would be the same way."
Exactly. Because, and here's the hypocritical thing though. These diehard tribalist WWE fans, whenever a WWE wrestler, or whenever somebody, I wouldn't even call him a WWE wrestler because nobody's a wrestler for one particular company. If somebody leaves WWE, goes to AEW, all of a sudden AEW can't function. They're just a home for former WWE men and women and blah, blah, blah. But then when an AEW wrestler leaves and goes to WWE, they're like, oh, well, they did the smart thing and they went to WWE and, Cody came home and Jade Cargill made the smart move and went to the bigger, the bigger pond, so to speak, and all this. And it's like, either way, none of it involves you.
Right.
So why are you putting all this energy into something that absolutely does not affect your life at all?
Cody, he was up there level
Yeah.
wise, but he was stagnating in AEW.
Yeah.
Jade
He left.
Cargill, which by the way,
Now
I
he's,
I got to see Jade Cargill's last match in AEW live.
yes,
I just
yes,
wanted
you
to throw
did.
that in there.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it at the time,
Yeah.
but I know
And
Jade
some
Cargill
people
though.
need to, some people need a new environment
Mm-hmm.
to get that spark again, or to, Jade Cargill is a star. Me and you have said that since the first time she walked on the screen. She is a star. Her look, the presence. People want to talk about how, that she wasn't good in the ring. Look, she had sixty professional matches before she took a loss. She'd never wrestled before and improved every single week. Now you had Jade Cargill doing this, but everybody wants to talk about how green she was. There's no difference between Jade Cargill and what she's done and Bianca Belair when she started because she had never wrestled before either,
Yep.
and she improved every single day in the ring,
Ooh,
on the mic,
that's
all
gonna
this.
be a match right there. Oh
And
my
that's the
lord. Ooh,
that is see,
that's a money
and
match.
that is a WrestleMania money
Ooh.
match. If they book that for WrestleMania, no one's going to care about potentially Rock and Roman, which does not need to happen, but we'll get to that on another show. Um, it's for me that the money match is just like when it was Bianca and Sasha. That was the money
Mhm.
match of that WrestleMania. The money match of the next WrestleMania will be Jade versus Bianca.
And Jade,
Athleticism versus athlete, power versus power.
Jade, even though she was the what was it, the TNT champion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
TBS.
TBS champion. She was TBS champion, but she was still kind of, there was really nowhere. She was already at the top. There was nowhere for her to go.
Yeah.
But
And she had plateaued because they made her the face of the TBS championship. And, she wrestled a lot on Rampage. She was kind of like the face of Rampage. But there was a ceiling for her at AEW. I don't think they were ever going to move her up to challenge for the women's world title. Once somebody hits a ceiling, they got two options. You just float along or you move along. Christian
yep,
Cage did the same thing in WWE. He hit the ceiling and he's like, I'm going to go
yep.
somewhere else. Went to TNA, won the NWA world title twice,
And
main eventing pay per views.
now we see the same thing with Edge. He had kind of hit
Hmm.
a
Yep.
plateau in this run with WWE. Now he's back. What I think a lot of us wanted anyway. Everybody wanted to see him and Christian back together,
Yeah.
even
And
against each other, with each other. I want to
yeah.
see Edge finish his career with Christian.
And before, I know we got to go, but before we close, he said that's why he left and went to WWE. He said he sat his family down, which he's married to Beth Phoenix and they've got kids. He sat her and the kids down and was like, what should dad do? And he said his 9-year-old daughter said, you need to go and have fun with Uncle Jay. And so he's like, so that's what I did.
Yep.
He's like, we've been best friends for 40 years.
Yes.
He's like, if I'm going out, I'm going out with him.
People don't get, Dwaylon and I have been friends for 35, something like that. Or 30,
Yeah,
about 34, 30,
about
since,
35. Yeah.
yes, since our junior year of high school.
Hmm.
Edge and Christian, Adam Copeland and Jay, I can't remember his last name,
I can't ever think of his last name, but yeah.
but they've been friends even longer than that.
Yep.
So and they
Yeah.
came, they both wanted to be wrestlers. They pushed each other. They came in together.
Yeah.
So it
I mean,
makes sense to end
they
together.
started wrestling at the same time, and now somebody made a good point on Twitter. I'll say this, and then I know we got to go, but they are now on equal footing because in WWE, Edge was always the preferred one for
Yes.
management over Christian. Even though I always preferred Christian, I thought Christian was the more well-rounded wrestler. Not that Edge was bad, but I always thought that Christian had all of it.
Right. He
And
he was more solid,
yeah, but
with his
now
skills.
Christian has reinvented himself again. Right now, he's the best heel in the business. And I mean, when has the TNT title main evented at AEW pay-per-view? Never until Wrestle Dream.
Exactly.
And it took Christian Cage to get it there. And Taz said on commentary that Christian Cage has elevated the TNT title more than anybody who's ever held it. And I 100% agree. And that is not a knock against Sammy or Cody or Samoa Joe or anybody else. But Christian Cage has main evented a major pay-per-view with that belt. Him and Edge are on the same level. So this is as good as it gets.
Yep. And I'm looking forward to seeing what him and Adam Copeland do in the ring.
Hmm.
Um, and now I think we know what our topic is going to be for, I don't know if it'll be Monday or Thursday next week, but I'm pretty sure it'll be
Right.
one of the shows next week.
Yep.
But until we can actually speak again, my friend, I do have to say goodbye.
Yep.
God bless.
God bless.